جاهز أخي؟ جاهز؟
نعم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تبارك وتعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إخواني، أعتذر منكم. I do apologize for for coming in late today, and also I was absent last. What's the day today? Friday. I was absent last Friday because I felt unwell. Sarahatan, Ikhwani, I do feel unwell today, but I've taken paracetamols, and inshallah ta'ala I do what I can today, but I doubt it's gonna take the lesson up until Salat al-Maghrib. والله أعلم. اليوم إن شاء الله تعالى سنبدأ بابا جديدا. إن شاء الله تعالى سنبدأ بابا جديدا. We're going to begin a new chapter. We're still in the book of al-Tahara. We're still in the book of purification. لكن اليوم بإذن ربنا عز وجل سنبدأ باب إزالة النجاسة وبيانها, which can be translated as the chapter of removing impurities and its explanation or its clarification, if you like. There's no need to write that if you don't want to, but that's what it says in the Arabic. Underneath where it says Kitab al-Tahara, right at the top, underneath that it says Babu Izalat al-Najasati wa Bayanuha. And we're talking about the chapter of removing impurities. Today, inshallah, we're going to begin hadith number 24. And this hadith is all about Najasatul Khamr. Najasatu al-Khamr, bima'na the impurity of alcohol. This is what we're dealing with today, or the first hadith anyway. The first hadith is the impurity of alcohol. And it's no surprise to any Muslim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made alcohol haram. And the tahrim, when I say the tahrim, which means the prohibition of alcohol, came in stages. Alcohol wasn't prohibited in one, what's the best word to say? In one stage. Alcohol wasn't prohibited in one stage. Who can think of a hikmah, a wisdom behind that? Why didn't Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala prohibit alcohol one time? If they came to us with fulus. The rules. I said fulus. I said I'll take the fulus. Take the fulus and run. Yeah. Oh, sorry, akhi. Sorry, bro. You wanna put the book here? Absolutely. Yeah, if the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam started to forbid the companions from every single thing that they were accustomed to doing at that time, then they wouldn't have embraced the religion or accepted the religion how they accepted it. You with me? And this is a proof for, and this is really, really important, at-tadarruj fi at-tashri'. At-tadarruj fi at-tashri', which means, at-tadarruj means when you do things in stages. And at-tashri' is the legislation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't forbid alcohol straight away. However, there's an ayah in the Quran which speaks about, that there's benefit in alcohol and gambling, but the harms outweigh the good. And then the next ayah that came down as it relates to the prohibition of alcohol is that you mustn't pray when you're in a state of intoxication. And then the next ayah is, which we're going to cover today, inshallah ta'ala, it's impure. Alcohol, intoxicants, gambling, drawing arrows, all of these things are impure. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tadarraja fi tashri'. He sent down the ahkam, or some of the ahkam, in stages. Even the salawat, as we know it now, are 5 daily salawat. But in the beginning of al-Islam, is only 2. نعم. تفضل يا أخي القاري. We're reading the first hadith now, إخواني.
الحديث الرابع والعشرون عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال: سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخمر تتخذ خلا، قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا، أخرجه مسلم.
Excellent. Sorry, guys. And the translation of the hadith is on Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He narrated, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asked about making vinegar out of wine or alcohol, if you like. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asked about making vinegar out of wine. He said no, meaning it's prohibited. It's prohibited. Here, this nahi, this prohibition, يقتضي ماذا? It indicates what, إخواني? I've mentioned it so many times. Excellent. التحريم, fantastic. Well done, أخي الكريم. أماني. النهي إخواني في الله يقتضي or يفيد التحريم. When the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام forbade from doing something, we understand that it's haram, you're not allowed to do it, unless, in which case is there an exception to this rule? Unless there's another dalil where he's done something actually himself, which takes it down from either a prohibition to something that's disliked, or an exception. Barakallahu feekum. Does everybody understand? Did everybody manage to write down the English of that so far? So we're speaking about right now the impurity of wine, according to what this hadith indicates. And this is the reason why the Musannif Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, this is why he brought this particular hadith under this chapter. What's the chapter heading? Removing impurities. Why are we speaking about vinegar and we're speaking about wine under the chapter of impurities? Why the Musannif is bringing this hadith to indicate that wine or alcohol is najis or najisa. It's najisa, it's impure. However, there is a difference of opinion amongst the ulama, which we're going to get to inshallah ta'ala soon. So now, let's understand what this hadith is actually saying. This companion by the name of Anas ibn Malik, he is asking about wine or alcohol, which after adding some properties to it, or perhaps leaving it for a certain amount of time, whether that be under the sun or in the shade, that wine now changes from the state that it was into becoming something else. Does that make sense, Ikhwani? This is the situation now. This is what we're speaking about. And the Prophet ﷺ clearly stated that this was impermissible. Why? Because the person, i.e. the person that wants to make this change from wine to vinegar, he's the one that's responsible for putting stuff to this wine or moving it from one place to another for it to change from one state to the other. In such a case, the Prophet ﷺ said such thing is forbidden. But my question to you is this: is vinegar in and of itself haram? Hands up for yes, it's haram. Vinegar. We all know what vinegar is, right? Quiz. Vinegar haram, yes or no?
No.
Hands up for yes, my bad. Mumtaz. Hands up for no. Mumtaz. Excellent. So what the ulama mention is that if the change, i.e. from wine to vinegar, has occurred as a result of somebody actually doing it, then this is impermissible. However, if the change from wine to vinegar occurs naturally, Mumtaz, They say that the ulama say bifi'lillah. We say that's natural, right? Bifi'lillah. By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just allowing it naturally, as the brother said, to change, then in such a case, it is permissible. Does that make sense, ikhwani fillah? Now, what is the benefit? This is going to be a really, it's a simple question, but it's going to require you guys to, look past the wording and dig deep to find out what's the answer to this. What is the fruits of knowing whether wine, we know it's haram, but what's the fruit, the benefit of knowing whether wine is najis or najisa or not?
To clean.
Mumtaz. Fantastic. Beautiful. What are you going to say?
You need to clean something.
If you can use it to clean?
Yeah, maybe.
Fantastic. Excellent. One of the fruits, ikhwani fillah, is that if wine is najis, then what does that mean, Ya'qub? If wine so happened, I don't know how, but wine so happened to fall on your thobe, what does that require you to do? Make sense, ikhwani? That's the benefit of knowing whether it's najis or not. Because if something's najis, as we've mentioned before, يحتاج إلى الغسل. It needs to be washed. If it's not najis, then what does that mean? It could be it's haram, but it's not najis or najisa. What does that mean now? If it gets on your clothes, you don't have to wash it. If it gets on your clothes, if it gets on your body, or if it so happens to be in the area that you so happen to want to pray in, you can still pray. That's the benefit in understanding or knowing, is it najis or is it not? And the ulama, they differ regarding this. And one of the supporting evidences, ikhwani fillah, which go to show that al-khamr is actually najis, is the verse in the Quran, where Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala yaqul, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O you who have attained faith, innama al-khamru wal-maysiru wal-ansabu wal-azlamu rijsun. Ma ma'na rijsun, ikhwani? Who's heard of the word rijsun before? Rajim sin. Heard of it? What ma ma'na rijsun? It's dirty, it's najis, it's impure. So clearly in this ayah, Allah mentions how many things? Arba'atu ashya. Al-khamr, alcohol. Wal-maysir, afwan, gambling. Wal-ansab, they translate it as sacrificing on altars, on stone altars, to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course. Wal-azlam, they translated it here as the divining arrows, but this is there is a better translation, and I saw it, but I forgot to mention what I forgot to change the translation. But I'm going to get the word in, inshallah ta'ala, before the end of the lesson. Yeah, drawing lots. But what's the best way to say drawing lots? Where you get some straws and then they just have to. Yeah, it's like a lucky pick kind of thing, but with straws, right? All of these, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, they are what? Rijsun min amal shaitan. These are impurities or defilement, as I've left the blank space there. Defilement from the works of the devil or shaitan.
Does that make do raffles online?
Again, I think the ulama, they speak about that, the impermissibility of doing that, because it's all to do with luck. All to do with luck. But then the ayah goes on to say, ikhwani fillah, afwan akhi, the ayah goes on to say, after saying that's from the actions of shaitan, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And the meaning of فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, which is the second word in the ayah that I've made bold, it means, and stay away from it. Stay away from it. فَاجْتَنِبُوا يعني الخمر. فَاجْتَنِبُوا الميسر. فَاجْتَنِبُوا الأنصاب. فَاجْتَنِبُوا الأزلام. Does that make sense, ikhwani fillah? So there's two indications in this verse which support the argument that khamr is impure, because something that's rijis is najis. I should have mentioned that before. Something that is rijis is najis. So Allah called these four things najis. Or rijis. And then He said, fajtanibuhu, stay away from it.
Fajtanibuhu, is that amr? Because it's
It's أمر. It's أمر. يعني الأصل اجتنب. لكن العاطفة I believe. فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. So they're from the evidences that the ulama say khamar is najis, which means if it gets on your clothes, what? You can't pray. You can't pray. The other argument is that just because something may be haram, it doesn't mean that it's najis. Just because something's haram, it doesn't mean that it's najis. And alcohol, when the final ayah was revealed concerning the prohibition of alcohol, what did the companions do in the streets of Medina, I believe? They poured it out on the streets. Now that there in and of itself isn't an explicit dalil to say that it's not impure. It's not explicit because they could have poured it, which is probably within the realms of reality, away from the places that they were praying. But that's an argument that some of the ulama say no, it isn't. It doesn't mean that it's impure. It's actually pure, meaning if it gets on your clothes, no problem. And apparently, I just heard an alim say this, but apparently some of the companions, they used to make a tadawi. They used to use alcohol for medical purposes, but not by drinking it, by applying it on the dhahr al-badan, as they say, on the skin. But it's a difference of opinion amongst the ulama. Now's obviously the time to get into it. Now's the time just to present the information to you guys. The strongest opinion, wallahu a'lam, is that it's najis, based upon the strength of the dalil. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. He called it rijis, and he said, stay away from it, and Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala knows best. Any question? I'm sorry, there's a few questions. You had a question, and you had a question. Sorry, bro. So sorry, man. I'll come to you.
I don't have a question. I was going to tell you that.
Spelling mistake?
Yeah, in the ayah.
Wait.
As dividing, not dividing.
I got it from the internet. So again, that my issue was when I saw the word divining, I was like, it's divining as well.
Divining, and the other translations say that it's seeking luck or
seeking luck. That's what I wanted to use that translation, but it's just, the word's correct. It's just that it's not mafhum. It's not really well understood in this context.
They used to use birds as well.
For I don't recall anything now, but you could be right though, Akhi. You could be right. Okay. Now, Akhi, you had a question as well?
You see, like alcohol in oil sprays, is that the same type of alcohol?
Yeah. Good question. The brother said that sometimes you might have a spray perfume, and in the ingredients it says there's alcohol in it. Is that the same type of khamr? Allahu a'lam. I don't think it is. However, for the reason that there is alcohol, some people are of the opinion or the stance that they won't use it. But the issue is this: if you're going to take that stance for alcohol in perfume, even though in its original state there may have been alcohol in it, but by the time it's become a perfume, there's either little to absolutely no real traces of alcohol left, then you're going to have to apply that across the board. And it's said that there's pork in toothpaste, so you're going to have to be. Have you guys heard that before? No one's heard that before.
I've never heard that.
Maybe it's just my toothpaste, I'm joking. No one's heard that there's you've heard it? Anybody else? Yeah. Like not like bacon or stuff like that, but stuff like that, in its original state before it becomes obviously a toothpaste, they use some type of pork, but by the time it becomes toothpaste, there's either little to no. And that depends on which opinion do you follow in this regard.
There's no difference because in perfumes it's ethanol, not khamr.
This is the
alcohol versus khamr, no?
This is why I said that.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was thinking. Is it the same alcohol you're talking about, or is it differentiate between?
Yeah, it's not the alcohol that you can consume and drink, but needless to say, there is an issue, and it's not as if like there's across the board, you can just use perfume that's got alcohol. Even to the point where some certain antiseptic sprays, they may have, or wipes, they may have alcohol in it, and as a result, it happened to me on the weekend. One of the kids got injured, and one of the teachers said that she thought the child didn't want to use the white because it had alcohol in it, but that wasn't the reason. It's because his mum works for the NHS and he's accustomed to the stinging sensation, so he said that he didn't want the alcohol rub. Anyway, guys, if we just go down to the benefits from the hadith, the first benefit from this hadith is that the reason why the author mentioned this particular hadith under the chapter of al-najasat is to make clear his stance that khamr is najisa, even though the ulama, they differ on this mas'ala in two opinions. The first opinion, as I mentioned, which is the strongest opinion, wallahu a'lam, alcohol is najisa, it's impure, and we benefit from that if alcohol was to drop on your thobe, your body, or the place that you intend to pray, you would have to wash it. And it's the safest opinion. The second opinion, that no, alcohol is actually pure, and the proof of this is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited alcohol, the companions, as the brother mentioned, they poured the alcohol in the street. They poured the alcohol in the street. Now, and if it was impure, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, as they say, as the ulama say that hold this opinion, if it was impure, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would have forbade them from doing so, just like he forbade them from at-takhalli fi at-tariq or fi at-turuq. At-takhalli means to relieve oneself, to go number two, for lack of a better expression, in the street. The Prophet ﷺ forbade from doing that. Why? Number one, obviously, it's adam al-adab, qillat al-adab, and also it's impure. And if you've got najasa in the middle of the street, Allah al-musta'an, obviously it's going to get on your fob, it might get on your shoes, you might transfer that najasa into the masjid. So that's the argument of the other side. It's good, but it's not explicit. It's like, alright, I see where you're coming from, but we got the ayah. What are you going to say against the ayah? Because the ayah says rijsun and the ayah says fajtanibuhu. Does that make sense, ikhwani? So you understand both arguments. And when you're presented with both arguments now, we're able to make a well-informed decision. So if you were to say, no, I'm going to take the opinion that alcohol is impure because of the ayah, then you've got, all the evidence that you need in order to do that. Na'am ikhwani fillah? Na'am. And don't forget, ikhwani, the asl fil ashya, the original default position as it relates to things, is that it's pure, unless you've got a dalil to say that it's excellent or impure. Alright? The asl, the default position, everything is pure, unless you have a dalil to say that this particular thing is impure. It's similar to the qaida that everything is halal in the religion. Everything is halal in the dunya. Naam. Everything is halal in the dunya, unless you've got a dalil to say that it's haram. And it's also similar to the qaida that everything is haram in the deen, jazakallahu khair, unless you've got a dalil to say that you can do it, as it relates to ibadah. Does that make sense, ikhwani? Sure? If I ask you a question, you're going to answer? I'm only joking. And the second point, ikhwani, just to speed things up until we get onto the next hadith, is this. In fact, let me ask you guys, very simple. What does this hadith indicate? It's very simple. Tahrim
Changing.
Excellent. Changing what?
Vinegar into wine.
Changing vinegar into wine. If it's done by the fi'l of the fa'il. Fi'l al-fa'il. Mumtaz. Barakallahu fiqh. I.e., the one that's doing it, it makes it haram. Alright guys, nantaqilu ila al-hadith.
He said vinegar into wine.
Wine into vinegar.
That's all.
Wine into vinegar.
You'll have to drink the wine.
Wine into vinegar. نعم. جزاك الله خير. الحديث الثاني.
الحديث الخامس والعشرون وعنه قال لما كان يوم خيبر أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أبا طلحة فنادى إن الله ورسوله ينهيانكم عن لحوم الحمر الأهلية فإنها رجس متفق عليه.
ممتاز. Ikhwani, the beginning of this hadith, it says وعنه. What does that mean and what does it refer to? وعنه. From who? Alright, check this, guys. Pay attention for those of you that are studying Arabic, right? It says وعنه. Anhu is made up of two words. An Ain Nun plus hu, which is a connected pronoun. Hu can mean he or it. When you put them together, it looks like one word, wa'anhu. So it definitely can't be going back to Bukhari and Muslim, because it would have been wa'anhuma. What does wa'anhu refer back to? Akhi. Now, ما المقصود بعنه وعنه؟ Huh?
And the same narrator of the last hadith.
And who, which was who, Akhi? Which was, I was hoping that, you know what, I was only showing the Arabic on my screen. I'm thinking, wait a minute, it's in there, the English. وعنه إخواني refers to, and on the authority of Anas. Anas ibn Malik was the narrator of the previous hadith that we just read. وعنه. Now, translation of the hadith is, Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu narrated, on the day of Khaybar, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam commanded Abu Talha. He commanded Abu Talha to announce, Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam have prohibited you from eating the flesh of domestic donkeys. Domestic donkeys, or you could just write donkeys if you want. For it is unclean, meaning impure. You know what as well, guys, I do appreciate that some of us may not understand Arabic, but try to learn these key words that I keep repeating. Rijsun, I mentioned that so many times, right? Rijsun, and I spelled it, Ra, Jim, Sin. That's been translated in this particular hadith as what? Unclean, unclean. But we know that it's impure. The al-maqsood is impure, it's najis. If something is rijis, it's najis. So the Prophet ﷺ commanded Abu Talha in this hadith to announce that the meat or the flesh, I'm going to translate in a minute. Oh, I've translated already. The flesh of donkeys is impure. Or impure. Is it impure? It's impure, isn't it? I am impure. Impure. Now, moving on. This particular hadith, there's a sabab for this hadith, ikhwani. Is everybody familiar with Yawm al-Khaybar? What's your understanding of Yawm al-Khaybar? It's a battle, right? The battle. And it's said as well, ikhwani, at the time that this announcement was made, the Muslims, they were going through famine. Can you imagine? They were going through famine, hungry. And they, before this actual announcement was made, they were actually cooking donkeys. They found some donkeys and was cooking the donkeys. And then the prohibition came down. It said also that the Prophet ﷺ told Abu Talha to make the announcement. Why? Because he was somebody that was known to have a very, very strong voice, a loud voice or a strong voice, which goes to show the permissibility of getting somebody, or if somebody's like an imam in the masjid, getting somebody to make an announcement if they feel that their voice is going to be more impactful or it's going to reach everybody. Anyway, as it relates to luhum al-humr, al-humr bima'na donkeys, al-ahliya bima'na domestic. Now this caused me some confusion because al-humr or al-himar al-ahli and al-himar al-wahshi is the two different animals in Arabic, or there are two different understandings you can understand from this. The first understanding is this: a domestic donkey is different from a wild donkey. A domestic donkey is a donkey that you ride on, that you may use to mount goods on, right? That you travel with. Whereas a domestic donkey, as my sheikh mentioned today, I literally, before I was coming to the lesson, I was like, Ya sheikh, ma huwa al-farq bayna al-himar al-ahliya wal-wahshiya? And he said that the dhabit is, the rule is that the wild donkey is the one that lives in the forest or the woods or wherever it may be, whilst the domestic donkey is the one that you use and you domesticate. And we're going to that's the second thing now. Now the second understanding is that the al-himar al-wahshi, which isn't mentioned in the hadith, but in Arabic, I said it because in Arabic they both have al-himar al-himar. They both have the word al-himar, that's why I mentioned it. He said that the second meaning is that al-himar al-wahshi is a zebra. Al-himar al-wahshi is a zebra. Meaning, zebras are permissible to eat, or the Prophet, peace be upon him, he gave us a concession as it relates to zebras. but he didn't give us a concession as it relates to either donkeys, domestic donkeys, or just donkeys generally. Yeah, all right, because if you understand that a donkey is either a domestic donkey or a wild donkey, then you can say, okay, we're not allowed to eat the domestic, but we're allowed to eat the. That's what I'm trying to explain. That's if that's the understanding. But if the understanding is what Abu Sumayya said, which is easier, zebras are permissible and donkeys are not. Let's just keep it simple like that. Does that make sense, Ikhwani fillah? Mumtaz. But we got an issue. If we say that the luhum of the himar al-ahliya, which is domestic donkey, is impure, what does that mean? Yeah.
Does it mean it's not?
Mumtaz. Which means what?
Donkeys.
Can't touch it, can't consume it obviously. Can't consume it. What about if the saliva of that donkey gets on you? What does that mean? Stay with me. You have to wash it. What about if the sweat of that donkey was to get, it includes everything, right? But we've got an issue. What's the issue? Yeah, Abba Sumayya.
The issue is when the hadith mentioned previously the dog and things that it doesn't mention the donkey and things. Another thing is
Whoa, slow down. Say that one again.
Remember we covered that other hadith about the
Kilab.
dog being najis and
Yeah.
things, the cat dog being najis. There wasn't no mention of the donkey one. Secondly, it says here the lahm, to consume the meat. It's not saying touching, you can't consume the meat, but it doesn't say you can't touch them or you can't.
Mumtaz. Excellent. And that's what the ulama mentioned, akhi. Here, the ulama say, well, some of them anyway, say that this is specific to the actual meat of the animal being impure. As for the actual animal in and of itself, then it's pure. Meaning you can ride it, you can touch it. If it's saliva, managed to hit your clothes, it's not impure. Wallahu a'lam. Wallahu a'lam. It's a very, very good point, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And it said that the Prophet ﷺ, he had a donkey, or he rode in a donkey. So how do we understand? And it's not recorded or reported that he Emir, right? I told you I was going to remember your name, akhi. It's not reported that he made al-wudu after being on a domestic donkey, nor did he command any of his companions to do so. Does that make sense, ikhwani?
And it would have been upon him to do so.
Bila shak. And when that brings me on to my next point, Abu Sumayya said it would have been upon the Prophet ﷺ to clarify this, because this is the deen. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was the musharri' anillah. He was the one that explained the legislation. Na'am, al-Quran tashri'. The Quran is legislation. But then the Prophet ﷺ came and he clarified some masail which were maybe mentioned general in the Quran. Does that make sense? And it always boggles my mind when you find some people that may say they don't accept the hadith, for example. As I'm sure you probably come across people that are saying we're only going to accept what's in the kitab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they will give you 101 reasons as to why they won't accept the hadith and the fallibility of a hadith, and it's from men, and oh gosh, I've had it all with them. I've had it all, seriously. And the simple question is what? What's the one question that you could, simple question, you don't even need to have tons of knowledge for this or memorize any Quran or, well, not much Quran or anything. What can you say? I shouldn't pick somebody else. I could have just stealing all the questions today. What's the one question that you could say to somebody that says, I do not accept, I'm a Muslim, I pray, fast, I make Hajj, but I don't accept hadith. Akhi.
When Allah says to obey the messenger,
I mean, they might argue and say, yeah, I am obeying him by following the Quran. I've had that argument. I'm gonna pick this brother because I don't think I've ever. What's your name, bro? Mukhtar. Barakallahu fi. Is this your first time today? May Allah bless you. Tfaddal. Mumtaz. How do you pray? You don't accept hadith. You say you're Muslim, but you pray. How did you learn how to pray Fajr raka'atani or Maghrib thalath raka'at or Asr arba raka'at? Is that mentioned in the Quran? How did you know how to make Hajj? How do you know how to fast in its totality? How do you know how to get married properly? Everything that's needed in a marriage. How do you know all of these things if you didn't accept the ahadith of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam? Or is it a case that you're a Pokemon and you pick and chew stuff? You know what a Pikachu is? What's a Pikachu? Yeah, sometimes I joke with my wife, yeah. I say to her, sometimes she just picks and chooses sometimes what she wants to do. I say, stop being a Pikachu, you Pokemon. That was a personal joke that just came out in the wrong time, so I do apologize. Allah musta'an. It's recorded as well, and it's live, it's done. Qudi al-amr, it's done, I have to forget about it. But Ikhwani, on a serious note, yeah, it's a bad case of picking and choosing. They will pick what suits them, but they will choose, you know, and you tend to find, not stuff like that, I'll take that back, not that you tend to find it, I have found it with some women that don't want to cover up no more. They don't want to cover up no more, or they don't want to, and although covering up is mentioned in the Quran, la shak, but it's they drew a veil. They understand it's modest wear. So as long as I'm modest, you know, and then anything that the hadith might indicate, like for example, what's another thing? Shaking of hands between men and women. You know, that's mentioned in the hadith, the severity of doing so. So then we tend to find out what happens is that the religion that the person is practicing is just their own concoction of what they think is right is wrong, and it's not the Islam that the Prophet ﷺ came with. Does that make sense, Ikhwani fillah? But you know, if somebody's following their desires, you can give them 1,000 dalils. It's not going to be sufficient. And if somebody wants to follow the truth, one dalil is sufficient and they'll accept it, you know. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our hearts pure and to keep us guided, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and to also never look down on somebody that's going through that, because oftentimes somebody might be going through a traumatic time in their life, and as a result, you know, when somebody, for example, gets a divorce, or somebody, I don't know, they're going through something troublesome, and then they start to make the religion suit them. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to take my scarf off, then the salah, do you know what I'm saying? But they still hold on to al-Islam. My point is, as wrong as it may be, pray for that person. Because that's a musibah to go through, ikhwani fillah. Because nobody knows at the end of the day. Wallahu al-musta'an. Nobody knows how they would react or act to a calamity. You may think you know what you will do, but you don't know what you will do until you're in that situation. And that can humble you. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't be so judgmental. Yeah, criticize the action, but don't criticize and defile the person, because you may do something even worse in that situation. That's just a little benefit, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Akhi, I think you had a question? No. You didn't have it? Yeah, I thought I saw you have your hand up. Alright guys, so we're going to go down to what can be benefited from this hadith. ما يستفاد من الحديث right at the bottom. Abu Sumayy لا تكتب. الحديث دليل على تحريم لحوم الحمر الأهلية. Obviously, that the hadith is a proof for the impurity or the uncleanliness of a domestic donkey, which extends to, according to some scholars, the blood of that donkey, the urine of that donkey, and the dung, D-U-N-G, of that donkey. All of that is impure. And then an exception has been made for, as some of the ulama mentioned, the sweat or the actual donkey in and of itself. Because if you were to mount a domestic donkey, bila shak, you're going to have to touch it in some capacity anyway, and maybe some of the the sweat of that donkey will go into your clothes. Now,
is the word in Arabic is that a feminine word?
Sorry, brother, repeat that one again. The word in Arabic.
The word for donkey in Arabic, is that a feminine word? Because it says
Al-Humr. Yeah, Al-Humr, I believe is no, but it's not that it's feminine. Sorry, it's not, because Al-Himar is not feminine, but the plural of an irrational noun is treated as Al-Mufrad, Al-Mufrad, Al-Muthanna. Na'am. But sometimes in the Quran there are exceptions to that though. But generally speaking, an irrational noun, when you take it into the plural, you treat it as the singular feminine when you refer back to it. But that's like Medina book 1 lesson 10 kind of thing. Alright guys, and another benefit as well guys, notice in the hadith that it says Allah's messenger, commanded Abu Talha to pronounce or to announce, Allah and his messenger have prohibited you. Allah and his messenger have prohibited you. What can we extract from this? Beautiful, Akhi man, beautiful. You read this before or you just took it today? Mumtaz, that's excellent. We understand that Allah obviously prohibits in the Quran, but the Prophet ﷺ also prohibits, because he is the one that as-sunnah tubayyin al-Quran. The Sunnah clarifies things that are in the Quran, and the Prophet ﷺ is allowed to do so. Alright, Ikhwani, we've only got 2 more ahadith to go, and we're doing not too bad for time. Barakallahu fik, akhi. When you ready, bro?
No.
Yeah.
الحديث السادس والعشرون وعن عم بن خارجة رضي الله عنه قال خطبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خطبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنى وهو على راحلته ولعابها يسيل على كتفي.
ممتاز.
أخرجه أحمد والترمذي وصححه.
Excellent. And I said to you guys that one of the distinguishing features of this book, Būloogh al-Marām, is that after every single hadith, the Ibn Hajar, he mentioned man akhrajahu, who is the one that collected the hadith? Bukhari, Muslim, Ahmad, Ibn Khuzaymah, Tirmidhi. And sometimes he might mention that which alim or ulama have authenticated the hadith. It's a benefit. It's a benefit. So this hadith can be translated as Amr ibn Kharija. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. He narrated, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam delivered a sermon to us at Mina. Allah's Messenger alayhi salatu wa salam delivered a sermon to us at Mina while mounted on his camel. And the camel's saliva was dripping on my shoulders. Reported by Ahmad and at-Tirmidhi, and the latter, i.e. at-Tirmidhi, he graded this sahih. He graded this hadith sahih. Now, everybody got that down? Yeah? No problem. Amr ibn Kharija narrated, may Allah be pleased with him, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam delivered a sermon to us at Mina whilst mounted on his camel. And the camel's saliva was dripping on my shoulders. Reported by Ahmad and at-Tirmidhi, and the latter graded it sahih. Now this sermon, Ikhwani Fillah, took place during Hajjatul Wada', which was the last Hajj that the Prophet ﷺ made. And the ulama they mention that when a person's given a khutbah or he's given a maw'idha, which is a sermon or an exhortation, a reminder, that it's recommended for that person to be ala makanin alim or murtafa, a place that's higher up than everybody else. Does that make sense? Why? Because that person's obviously going to need to be seen, heard, and people are going to want to ask questions. Obviously not in the khutbah, but generally speaking, the person that's given the exhortation or khutbah, he should be ala makanin alim. Another benefit, Ikhwani, that was something that's interesting in this particular hadith here, is that we understand, or shall I say, it's implied that the lu'ab, ma ma'na lu'ab? Saliva, mumtaz. The lu'ab of this rahila, which I've translated as a camel, was dripping on the shoulder of Amr ibn Kharija, sah? Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. It's implied that the Prophet would have seen it, and what? Excellent, akhi. Excellent. Why is it excellent?
Because if it was najis, he will say to him,
and he saw it
upon him to tell him
exactly. And even if he didn't see it, Allah would have clarified, because this is deen, right? This is deen. So it's implied that the Prophet ﷺ saw this occurring, and he didn't correct the individual. Because it's not permissible, ikhwani fillah, for the Prophet ﷺ to see something that goes against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained and remain silent about it. It's against his risala, his messengership, his prophethood. Because that would necessitate what? Let's say, hasha lillah, but let's say that the Prophet ﷺ saw something that was haram and he didn't say it. What are we implying? Or what would, if somebody was to say, that, what is the implication of that, Muslim? What's the implication of that? Somebody accused the Prophet of seeing something that was haram but remaining quiet about it. It's kufr, but what's the implication of that? What are you trying to say? أنت مسلم نعم لكن اسمك ليس بمسلم. No, don't try to make me out like no, I'm joking. And that's what, it was a mistake. I was talking about my intention was, is your name Muslim, fadl. What's the implication? What did he say? That's what I'm trying to say. Amir. No worries. How about you, Akhi?
Can't really put it in words.
No, that's cool. Now,
It's almost like you're saying that something Quran is permissible. Like you're just allowing it to happen.
I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. 100.
Be like taking it from haram to dislike because he hasn't said.
I see where you're coming from with that one too, but that's not.
Would you be implying that the messenger didn't do his job?
Beautiful. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. What you're saying is that the messenger was treacherous. A'udhu billahi min dhalik. Because he was commissioned with a message and he saw something that contravenes the very nature of this message and he remained silent. But doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran, al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum? And this is what the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran, al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atamamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam dina. So what are you trying to say, that Allah was not telling the truth there? Do you know what I'm saying? There's so many things that are contingent on somebody accusing the Prophet of not forbidding something that was haram. And what I wanted to say, that's one of the definitions of what a hadith is, right? When we say what is a hadith, at the very, 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 if somebody, have you got the book, bro? If you go back to the first lesson that we had, right? And then we go with it was terminologies. So yeah, keep going. No worries. You know what?
This one.
There we go. All right. So can I just borrow that real quick? Shukran. When you come to the terminologies, ikhwani fillah, it says ما نصب إلى النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. A hadith is whatever has been attributed to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام من قول. ما معنى قول؟ من قول أو فعل أو تقرير. And that word there, who can remember how I translated it? Go on. What letter does it begin with?
I remember.
It looked like you was about to say the word. How did I translate? Stop. And he said it. Tacit approvals. I thought you was going to say no. Tacit approvals, ikhwani. Tacit approvals, which means the Prophet ﷺ saw something and he remained silent. That shows the permissibility or the acceptability of that action. Does that make sense, guys? Thank you very much, bro. Great. That's good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, let's go because this is we've done about an hour now, right? This is like a record for me because we've only got one hadith to go after this. Anyway, quickly for the benefits that we can write from this particular hadith, this hadith indicates that it's appropriate, for the khatib to be on a raised, what are we gonna say, guys? On a raised platform. All right. This hadith is also an indication that you can also mount an animal, even though an animal would be considered as a, technically speaking, a raised platform. But we're speaking about an animal. You can sit on an animal, all right, as long as the animal is pure, of course, and deliver a sermon or an exhortation. Now,
Would you say it's permissible or preferred?
for which one? The previous
First
one?
yeah, because it's yanbaghi, but-
Yeah, yanbaghi. I said I think I said when I translate the word yanbaghi, appropriate, appropriate or suitable.
Yeah,
Yeah, but again, we have covered this issue when we went through one of the books about the salah, and I can't remember what Sheikh Abdul Muhsin's position on that. Is it wajib that the imam, yani he stands on a makan alim or murtafa? I have to check. I have to go back again. And last but not least, guys, this hadith is an indication that the saliva of, it says al-ba'ir here, but it's referring specifically to an animal. Any saliva, that's it. Any saliva of a grazing cattle is pure. Any saliva of the grazing cattle is pure. All right. So, behemoth al-an'am. All right, excellent, guys. All right, Sheikh Al-Qari. Naam.
What was it,
Ba'ir.
cattle?
No. The word ba'ir is like a beast. But initially it was the word we used in the hadith, the word that was used was rahila. And that was understood to mean al-jamal. Alright? But now it says that the Shaykh, and I quote that as well, he didn't say lu'abu al-ibil or lu'abu al-rahila. Now he changed it to al-ba'ir. And as I remember reading after that, they say meaning the saliva of a cow, or the saliva of a camel, or the saliva of a sheep, that they all come under being but you can use the ta'bir of ba'ir. You understand? Now,
What was the heading?
for this particular title, excellent. Did I miss that out? Sorry, it's the purification of the saliva of camels. The purification of the, well, you could just say grazing stock if you want to, but this is specifically for the hadith. The hadith is mentioning al-rahila, which the ulama say is al-ibn. Alright, ikhwani, if you don't mind, let's just get on to the last hadith, and if there's time, you guys want to stay a little bit longer for questions, and then we can do that inshallah. Tafadli ya akhana. Oh yeah, the one after that. Yeah. Please do those two, please.
الحديث السابع والعشرون وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يغسل المني ثم يخرج إلى الصلاة في ذلك الثوب وأنا أنظر إلى أثر الغسل فيه متفق عليه.
ممتاز. عفوا تفضل.
ولمسلم لقد كنت أفركه من ثوب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فركا أو فركا
نعم.
فيصلي فيه.
No. I just noticed, guys, in I know you guys have got the main English version, but in the Arabic there's a mistake. There was two kasras under the word thawb. It should have had one kasra, min thawbi rasuli Allahi, which is mudaf ilay. That's for all of you Arabic grammar lovers. Alright, I'm going to translate the first hadith, and then we're going to move on to the second hadith, because he read two there, ikhwani. First one, Aisha narrated, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to wash the semen, S-E-M-E-N. He used to wash the semen, then go out for prayer in that very garment, and I could still see the trace of the washing on it. I could still see the trace of the washing on it. And then it says wali muslimin, which is the second hadith, guys. And in a version of this same hadith, but the first one is muttafaqun alayh in Bukhari and Muslim, but there's a version in Muslim that says I haven't got the thing. That's funny. Alright, I used to why did they translate this hadith? Was this white? I think it was scratch. I used to scratch it, in brackets, the semen, off the garment of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he offered prayer with it. Crystal clear the mas'ala that we're dealing with now, guys. I want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Bro at the back, Assalamu alaikum. How you doing, man? First time at the class? Yeah, it might be a little bit heavy, but how you finding it so far? You understanding it? Jamil. What's your understanding, my bro, of these two ahadith that I mentioned? What are they speaking about? Of not the lesson, the last hadith I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. Even if you just have to paraphrase it, no worries. The last two things I just mentioned. Excellent. If washing of the semen, if what happens though? When washing it when?
What is it?
He said after it's come out. Cause after. I wasn't laughing at you, I was laughing at the joke. The joke was funny. But what I was trying to get at, after it's come on your clothes. After, of course, I know. I knew we was on the same page, but that's where I was going with my story. Anyway, that's what we're speaking about, guys. Semen, all right. Well, it's not a necessity, but let's say in the context of what's happening here, you've had some kind of contact with your wife, and after having contact with your wife, semen is it comes out, and it goes on your clothes. This is what we're speaking about here. What do you do in such a case? What do you do in such a case? Bismillah.
You asking, is that a question to us?
No, I'm saying that.
If you was asking a question to ask you.
I hear what you got. No. I hear what you got to say, but I was just rounding it up to be. This is what we're speaking about right now, because it's the topic. When I was reading and then preparing, I was like, wow. The topic just took. We're speaking about saliva, and then we just went straight to semen. It's like, whoa! It was like, okay, cool. No. No. Say what you say, bro.
I'll say that it shows that if it gets on your clothes, then you're allowed to wash it, and it's not najis.
Wicked. This is. You just basically ruined the second part of that. Oh, I didn't know you were gonna say that. I didn't know you were gonna say
I
that.
thought you was asking us a question.
No worries. All right. Let me ask you a question. Based upon those two ahadith that I've mentioned, they both talk about semen, yes, but they both talk about what specifically as it relates to removing the semen. And wicked. Washing and scratching. Put that up there, ikhwani. We're talking about semen, removing semen specifically. Right? Remember what was the title of this book, this chapter? Babu Izalatu an-najasati wa bayanuha. What did you translate that as, guys? What did you translate that as? Removing. We're speaking about how to remove the semen. There's one way to remove it with water. There's another way to scratch it off. Islam allows that to happen. Ya'qub, when would you use each way to remove semen? Like, we've got two methods. First method is what? And the second method is? When would you use which one,
Scratching is when it's break.
Go on.
And then washing it is
That can't be right. You know why, my bro? Because if you read the first hadith where it's mentioned, you said scratching is when he went to pray. And I said, that can't be right, because if you read the first hadith, it says that the messenger used to wash the semen, then go out for prayer. So he's going out for prayer when he washed it as well. But when would you use both? Yeah.
Washing it, there's water, but there's no water, you could scratch it.
I see where you're going with it, but not quite. I mean, you're not dead wrong, but you're not on the money. Nah.
Would you wash it when it's wet?
Beautiful.
When it's dry, you scratch it.
Beautiful, and that's what you wanted to say, right? I know, I had a feeling. That's the answer, Yaqub. If it's wet, i.e., it's like literally just come out of the man.
Can't scratch it.
It's gonna be messy. Really messy. You know what I'm saying? There's supposed to be no shyness in the religion. There's supposed to be no shyness, and I'm trying my best to keep my composure. Especially like you see when you crack a joke with that Yaqub. You've got such a nice smile, mashallah. Allahumma barik feek. Obviously, yeah, you're gonna wash it if it's wet, and then if it's dried, because now the consistency's changed. The consistency, it's plausible that you can scratch something dry, but you can't scratch something that's wet. Jay, that's fantastic. So what Abu Sumayya said next was really, really important, and that was going to be my way of determining, have you guys really understood this hadith? Sheikh at the back, ma'alesh. The benefit of knowing how you can remove semen, because you know that once you have obviously ejaculated, however that has happened, you're in a state of janaba now, which you need to make ghusl. You, the body, needs to now make ghusl. The Muslim is not najis, but you are in a state of ritual impurity, and that's important. Al-mu'min la yanjus or la yanjas. The believer doesn't become impure. But now we're speaking about the actual substance that has come out of you, and as a result of which your body has become impure. That's the semen. Is it impure or not? In and of itself, meaning if it gets on your clothes, are you required to now wash, or is it okay for it to be removed in another way? That's the issue. Do you understand what I'm saying, Ikhwani? We need to know this as men. Is it pure or is it not? If it's pure, then we can suffice with just scratching when scratching becomes an option. If it's not pure, whether it's wet or whether it's dry, what do we have to do?
Wash.
Thank you. Because najasa can only be taken away by water. Do you know what I'm saying? Najasa, except in the case of ad-dubagha, which we covered, najasa can be taken away with water and tanning. You know, the process that you put chemicals and you change it, even if it was a carcass. But I'm saying, generally speaking, najasa is... You can't tan your clothes, what do you mean?
No, you said it has to be removed by water. You said except in the case of tan. I said exactly because you can't tan your clothes.
What do you mean? You can't tan. Was that a joke?
No, I'm saying.
Oh, because I didn't get it if it was.
It's not a joke.
Sorry. No.
You're saying, right? You said, yeah, that means that najasa has to be removed by water, yeah?
Yeah.
So you're talking about washing the clothing, right? You said except in the case if it was like tanning. You know what I'm saying? And I said exactly because you can't tan your clothes. You can't put your clothes out in the sun and tan them.
That's
And
specific for the animals. You can't do that for clothes. That's out.
Can't forget it.
Yeah, you were ba'id, akhi. No, I'm sorry, man. Sorry, you were ba'id because you don't tan your clothes.
That's what I'm saying to you.
But that's out.
I didn't get that one. I'm sorry, bro.
I'm saying
I get
that's
it.
the proof that only the water can purify it. And you said except in the case of tanning. I said exactly you can't tan your clothes, so it have to be water.
I'm just gonna say okay. I'm gonna say okay, just to get on with the rest of the. We talk about this later on the phone, man. Yeah, that's it. That's really interesting, right? That's really interesting that you can scratch your semen and you can go to pray in that. But what's the issue here? There's a real big issue. There's like a red flag that I'm surprised that no one. It's so red.
One's water, one's scratch.
No, there are two different ways you can take it off, but there's an issue.
That was still seen.
Seen.
You can still see it.
No. That may for what us nowadays be embarrassing, but the Prophet is a man. Yeah, just go to the masjid.
Is everything najasa be mad? How can you one be allowed to scratch and the other one allowed to water?
Because it's not najis.
You see it? You see it because it's not najis. But what's the problem?
There was no ghusl. If you're impure, does it mention he made ghusl?
It doesn't mention that he didn't. And obviously we know that he would have if he became
I thought
sexual.
that was the issue because it doesn't
No,
mention
but
it.
I see where you're coming from. Naam.
He went to pray with the same clothes.
No, that's fine because they're not because it's not pure. It's not impure. So he can. So that's a benefit as well if it gets in your bed sheets as well, right? If you're having, let's just be real, guys. That's for the married one. To cover your ears, bro. I'm joking. That's my brother. I can joke with him like that. It's okay. Family concession. Why you have to laugh like that? What's the man make that noise? Anyway, when a husband and wife have intercourse, right? There's no way of knowing if semen has dropped on the quilt or not, right? No way. There's no way of knowing. So it's interesting. It's good to know. Do I now, every time I have intercourse with my wife, because there's a possibility I gotta wash the sheets all the time? That's hardship. Do you know what I'm saying? But if you know and believe that it's the semen, once it's dried, it's not impure, you know, then you're not going to be so meticulous about washing your sheets every time you have. Do you know what I'm saying, guys? These are the things that we benefit from it. Somebody had a question? No.
What happened here?
This is going to...
After you do the business, and then you,
The business, is that what we're going to call it these? Is that what we're going to call it these days?
after you do the fun stuff here,
Wow. Nah, I prefer the business, I think. I felt more comfortable with that word.
after you do business, and you make Muslim,
My children are over there, man.
but it's fine.
Why do you have to be listening now? He's always normally playing football. Where's Honey, man? Where's my daughter? Hope she's sleeping or something. Astaghfirullah.
Yeah, so what if you leave the house to go to pray, where you put you put your flow on, and you don't realize that there's stuff on there, but it's dried out, and you go to pray, does it mean your prayer's not accepted?
I mean, generally speaking, Akhi, what we're speaking about here is not so much the hukum of what that thing there is that person even going to be held accountable for something they didn't even know was occurred? Do you know what I'm saying? In this case, they're legitimately ignorant. Do you know what I'm saying? So you can think of 101 issues like this, but they all start off with or are centered around the person didn't know. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's just the first thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to hold a person accountable for something that's outside of his scope or his knowledge, so long as that person wasn't being negligent. There's a big difference between being negligent and not knowing something. Something that you have to know. You know, there's no excuse. Do you know what I'm saying? You're a teacher of a school and you don't know that child safety is important. Or you don't know that it's important that, strangers shouldn't come into the school. There's some things in a religion that you can't be ignorant about. You can't be ignorant that you have to pray 5 times a day. Do you know what I'm saying? But there might be some things that you're ignorant about when it comes to zakat or some other types of issues. Do you know what I'm saying? Who can remember the last place we got up to, guys? Because
the red flag jumping, that should be jumping out.
yeah, what's the? Thank you so much, Akhi. Sammy. Okay. What's the red flag? Let me repeat it one more time. We know the first hadith is the Prophet washed it. The second hadith, the Prophet scratched it. And then I said to you that this is a proof that the ulamas use to say that semen is pure. It's pure. Right? It's pure. So what's the issue?
He couldn't have gotten all of it off when he scratched it.
Very good try, man, but no.
Is it because obviously the admission of semen, you have to give also yourself?
Good try, bro, but no.
Because if it's pure, then why do you need to wash it away? and scratch it away?
I want to spud you right now, man. Let's just do a psh. That's it, man. Excellent, Akhi. That's the answer. Is that what you said?
That's what I meant.
Okay, maybe you use different wordings then, because that's what I was expecting. I've said so many times that najasa is removed with what? Remember you said something about the tanning shirt? Remember that part of the lesson? That's where it was around. So then it's like, well, if you're saying it's pure, why did he remove the wet one with water? Do you know what I'm saying? That's the argument of the other crew, or the other team, the other side. Do you know what I'm saying? Then you can say, well, what we said in the beginning, if something's wet, you're not going to scratch it off. It's munasib, it's suitable to wash it off.
Certain times you get other things off in your hand, they're not najis, but still, on the clothes, you still wash it off.
Yeah, exactly.
If I've got jam on my thing, I'm not going to say
Exactly, Mumtaz, I like that. I do like that. Just for those that didn't hear, he said that you will wash off anything else that's just pure. Like if you had jam on your clothes, just because you washed it with water doesn't mean that the jam is impure. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just as well like it would not be socially acceptable for anybody to walk into a place and they got semen on there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like nobody's gonna want to stand next to you, whether it's pure or not. I don't want that purity. It'll be something like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Question now: how does this relate to the discharge of a woman? Because if semen,
that I haven't prepared for either.
No, but it's not off because if you're gonna get your stuff on there,
Yeah.
chances are you're getting her stuff on there as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now it mentions the semen.
Of a man.
women don't have semen. They have whatever discharge, whatever you want to call it. So now, do you make qiyas of that and say, okay, the same thing with if you got a woman's discharge and then you just wash it or you just scratch it off?
For him to.
Is it a whole different?
For him. I mean, Akhi, it's a fantastic question, and it's the answer to that I don't know. I haven't prepared for it, and in all honesty, I only went back to 2 books to prepare for this lesson. None of them mentioned that. Funny enough, maybe they did. I just didn't read it, but I don't remember seeing it. I'm gonna check it out, man. It's muhim.
Would you say then that the semen is it's pure but it's not clean?
No, because when you say it's, oh gosh. Sorry guys. So, would I say now that the semen is pure but it's unclean? No, because when you say unclean, that means najis. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong person giving the answer. You asked me the question, right? Yeah, you would say it's najis. It's not that it's unclean. In that sense.
It's not something you would have. It's like spit.
Yeah, but all right, it's spit unclean. When you say unclean in English, you will say. Yeah, I mean that's what we would say. It's not hygienic. I think it's better. The word hygienic is better because the saliva is not unclean. Does that make sense, guys? It's pure.
Yeah.
Saliva is pure. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not that it's unclean like that, but if you want to talk about like somebody's mouth might have bacteria in, then obviously it's unclean from a hygienic point of view.
I was going to ask, it's related to this,
Medi, yeah. Cool. Yeah, in terms of its najasa, yeah. What the brother asked is about the word al-madi, because right now we're speaking about al-mani. Mani is the thick semen that comes out, right? At intercourse or wet dream or however it comes out. But al-madi he's speaking about is pre-seminal fluid, which is a clear white type of sticky substance that comes out at arousal of a man when the man's aroused and prior to the thick stuff coming out. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah, there's the 2 issues. So you're asking what's the situation as it relates to that. To be honest with you, I did anticipate this question and I saw it in the book just to remind myself, but I didn't what's the word? I didn't end up reading it, but from what I can remember from like many years ago, that it's it takes the same ruling. It's still, you obviously if it's wet, you need to pray it, get some water, wash it off, but it doesn't make, it's not impure. You can scratch it off and it's the same masala. Serious. Maybe there's a difference of opinion, but the best thing for me to do, and let me read inshallah ta'ala, and then next lesson I'll add that. No, I could be wrong. Sorry? Any more? No.
So is the blood open najasa as well?
The period blood.
I mean, like, let's say when
You say the blood.
Yeah, but when you first get married, yeah, and when it's in your car, the woman is pure, isn't it? Does that mean that this blood is also, you have to wash it straight away when it happens?
Yeah, when you say when the man gets married and the woman's pure, what you mean by that is she's a virgin. Yeah, because she might be a virgin, but she might be in the time of the month, so she's in a state of najasa. But I get what you're saying. A virgin girl has, had intercourse on the first day of their wedding or whenever it was. Doesn't have to be the first day of Sumayya. Do you know what I'm saying? Could be day 7. It's all, do you know what I'm saying? There's no conditions that I know of anyway. I don't know of anything. That was the only thing what he said to me last time. You hurt me, bro. You wounded me. No, it's not. We finished. He wounded me last week when he said what he said. 3 in a row, man. Yeah. So the blood, according to what I know, is najis. So yeah, you would. You mean talking about? Do you have to take off the sheets and wash them?
No, I mean like, so when it happens, and then when blood comes out, you have to clean it, and then you can carry it after that.
Oh. Do you understand the question?
Yeah,
somebody.
Privately, but
Yeah, yeah.
identity is code words.
All right, cool. We can do this. Give me 2 seconds though, bro. No. Oh yeah. This the Yarush. I've heard that. Yeah. Yarush. Yeah. Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair. Naam. That's it. All right. Thank you so much for that, akhi. And this is by Sheikh bin Baz, isn't it? The Sheikh Baz was saying. Yeah. I should have mentioned this. All right. When it comes to najasa, ikhwani fillah, the ulama mentioned that it's split into, or it can be categorized into 3 categories. Heavy najasa, medium najasa, and
Like,
khafifa. Najasa that's khafifa. So when you're speaking about heavy najasa, what are we speaking about? Period, or even like we've been covering in this bab, carcass, al-mayta. All these are heavy najasa. Do you know what I'm saying? A dog, you can wash a dog 1,000 times, it will never ever remove that najasa. It's then you've got a najasa that is mutawassita in the middle, which can be, urine and stuff like that, right? You can just wash it away and it will go in it. You can clean it. And then you got najasa that's mukhaffafa. That's why the mas'ala got a bit confusing. It's a very, very light type of najasa, which can be removed by spraying the area. Jazakallah. Oh, here's your phone back, man. Can you send that to me via WhatsApp though as well? Do you mind? Because I can add that to my notes. Does that make sense, guys? That was speaking about the pre-seminal fluid that I mentioned earlier. That I wasn't too sure about. I said it's the same, but it's actually not. It's a najasa that's mukhaffafa. It's light, but it's not that it needs to be like completely washed. You can just
what's the area?
Yes, sprinkle. They say yorush is like to sprinkle. Yeah, they say it's just a sprinkle, akhi. Because to wash the area would necessitate to wash it. Because washing is different from sprinkling. Because it's light, it's khafifa. Exactly. But it comes under being impure, but it's like the least level, if you like. The least level. Yeah. You have to make wudu again, guys. You have to make wudu. All right, guys. Let's quickly go to the benefits. So one of the benefits, to be honest with you, I didn't write too many down, but one of the things I actually like the first one. This hadith, or this is what Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan or Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, he said that this hadith indicates, the virtue of Aisha. Why?
She cleaned it for him.
Because she cleaned the garment for the Prophet alayhi as-salatu wasalam. لَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَفْرُكُ, I used to أفرك, scratch, min thawbi Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam farakan, the semen of the garment of the last messenger. So it goes to show, the virtue of a woman looking after her husband and doing stuff like this for him. Do you know what I'm saying? Not to be, I think the word is misogynistic. Is that where a man just always thinks that he's entitled and stuff like that? Not from that angle, because it could be easy to construe it like that. I'm not saying that's all a woman's, her roles relinquished, just helping up a man in the house. I'm not saying that. But it's a beautiful virtue for a woman to support her husband, her provider, in such a way. And that extends to also cleaning the house and, cooking food and stuff like that. I'm not saying that a woman has to do these things. I haven't looked into the mas'ala. Does a woman have to cook for you? That's the issue, right? That's the mas'ala that I'm sure all married men, and soon to be, inshallah, want to know. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you might start putting pressure on your wife to cook for you every day. She might say to you, well, it's not wajib for a woman to cook for you every day. What are you going to say? You have to walk away with your you come from that angle, yeah, no, that's cool, man. That's always a get out of jail free card. So Abu Sumaya, so basically what you just I want to joke. I want to say it. But they didn't hear what they did. I don't think they picked that. But you get what I'm saying though, guys. I wasn't saying it to put a woman down, but it's nice that the ulama actually saw, wow, it goes to show that, look how the woman, look how the wife of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, used to serve her husband. It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. But by extension, guys, and I have to add this to be fair and just, I know all of us, inshallah, whether we're married or we would like to be married, we all want our wives to treat us like kings. Am I lying? Am I lying, guys? Am I talking to me, guys? Am I lying? I'm not lying. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. We all want our wives to, do you know what I'm saying? We come home, food's ready, and she looks good, and she always smells fresh and stuff like that. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants to be respected. But that comes with responsibility. Do you know what I'm saying? That comes with responsibility. If you want that type of respect from a woman, right, or your wife, you have to give that type of respect. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't enter into a marriage thinking that you can do what you want, but still expect the Prophet, your wife to act like the wives of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. It's ghayru mumkin. Do you know what I'm saying, guys? And a lot of the times, as men, we may not think about the ramifications of our actions because we're men. I'm happy, I'm working, I'm doing this, I gotta do that, I gotta do this, and do you know what I'm saying? And you forget that how you act as a result of feeling how you feel impacts people. Do you know what I'm saying? So, you know, maybe if you want your wife to treat you like a king, then you start treating her like a queen, and that you'll get that. You'll get what you want. Not in a misogynistic way, but you get what you want, what you desire. Do you know what I'm saying, guys? It's as simple as that. Exactly. As you do to how do they translate that? As you do, you'll get back. Do you know what I'm saying? Well, I'm saying exactly. Excellent. That's the khulasa. That's the khulasa. And that's advice to myself first and foremost. Allah al-musta'an. And the second thing is, as I mentioned before, this hadith is an indication that the semen of Bani Adam, human beings, is pure. Why? Because the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ was to wash it if it was wet and to scratch it if it was dry. And that's a proof of the purification of it. According to that camp, or that group. But yeah, man, we're good. Yeah, we're good. Oh, you want to show me something, right?
Yes. Remember we spoke about the issue...
About saving it?
Sorry?
About saving it on Insta?
No. About the salah, about catching the ruku.
Yeah.
So you said bring it next week. So it says here that Hanafis and Hanbalis quote as evidence reported by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Some said whoever catches up with the prostration of Asr prayer before the sun sets, let him complete his prayer. And if he catches up with the prostration of Fajr before the sun rises, let him complete his prayer. Muttafaqun alayh. There are other opinions though. This is the Hanbalis and Hanafis.
So that's the they take that opinion based upon that hadith.
No.
But there are other evidences to suggest.
Other hadith say whoever catches up with
rak'ah
of the prayers, called the prayers.
Yeah. You get that a lot. You know, basically what the brother was saying, for those that may have just switched off a little bit, we was previously speaking about if you catch the ruku' of salah or if you catch the sajda of the salah, which one constitutes that you've caught that rak'ah? Do you know what I'm saying? So you come to the masjid and they're in sujood. If you make sajda with them, does that mean you've caught that rak'ah? Or they're in sujood, or do you have to make that rak'ah up again? Or you walk into the masjid and the people are in al-ruku', which is like this position here. Alright? If you catch them, do you have to make up that rak'ah? Or can you just suffice and count that as your first rak'ah? This is the issue that...
I don't think the mas'ala was that.
No, this is what me and you were speaking about.
But we were talking about when you were talking about the prayers about to come out. That's what you said last time.
Hear me out.
The mas'ala here is not...
Hear me out. Why are you reading this hadith to me?
Because you said last time...
To get the delay.
Yeah.
To get the delay. Why did I ask you for the delay? Because I made this statement that you can catch the rak'ah if you catch the ruku'. And I was talking about the man that walked into the masjid in the ruku'. Do you understand? And he caught the rak'ah like that. And then you said, what's that? You said the ruku', and you said, isn't it sajda?
No, I wasn't talking about the rak'ah. that's not what we're talking about. If you go back and recording, it wasn't about did you catch a rakat of that salah.
He's a liar. Go on, say that, sir. Go on.
No, go. Liar or lawyer?
No, lawyer. Go. It was the last bit you said.
Thing,
Yeah.
It was talking about the waqt coming out, right?
Yeah.
You said, so if you catch the rakat, you've caught the salah, right? And the waqt's about to leave, right?
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes,
and I
yes.
said, from what I remember from Abu Sayyid, and he said you have to catch the sujood to catch the waqt.
Okay, so that
Right.
means when we had the conversation, I was thinking a completely different thing to what I understand what you're saying now. Do you understand? I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
I made the statement that if you catch the raka'ah, even if in time, but then the rest of the salah is out of the time, you were saying, does the salah count?
Damn.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't understand that at the time. I wasn't even thinking about that, to be honest. I was thinking about if you catch the raka'ah, the ruku', you don't have to make up the raka'ah. That's what I was thinking of, but I see what you were right, I was wrong. No, I'm telling you, because I understand what you're saying now. Does that salah still count? That raka'ah may have counted, but what about the other three? That's what you're talking about, yeah? Yeah, so maybe, yeah, I'd have to look at that. Yeah. Jay, no, for the akhi.
Just a general question. Are you using Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan's sharh?
Yeah, indeed.
Does he mention the different opinions of the madahib,
In which mas'ala?
Like in all of these issues.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Does he mention what the Hanabila say?
Yeah, excellent. That's a fantastic question, man. Do you mind if I repeat it quickly?
Yeah.
So the brother said that the book Būloogh al-Marām, which was written by which sheikh? Give me the full 100. Ahmed Ibn Ali Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Mumtaz. All right. Naam. Abu Fadl, barakallahu feek. Well done, akhi. If he's gonna hit me when he died and when he was born there. 77. 773. Naam. 852. Anyway, back to the point. He said that the book that we're covering, am I going through when I prepare these lessons the explanation of Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, or do you say Sheikh Fawzan?
Sheikh Salih.
Oh, Sheikh Salih, yeah, I do. Well, that's one of my reference points. Another reference point is Abdullah Fawzan, Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan. Fantastic book. To be honest, akhi, a lot more comes from this Sheikh Abdullah than Sheikh Salih. I think Sheikh Abdullah, he wrote this sharh for this. I think Sheikh Salih's sharh, let's say I'm giving a class now, guys, yeah? And it's been excellent. Let's say I'm giving mufarraq, صح? Is that mufarraq, the word tafriq or mufarraq? Let's say I'm a sheikh, right? I'm giving a lecture. Sorry, guys. Say I'm a sheikh and I'm giving a lecture and it's being recorded and I'm just going off the top of the dome, or might have a little few notes, but I'm just going off the top of the dome. The fawaid that you guys get, and that information is recorded and then it's written into a book. That's written into a book. Even when you read it, you can read remnants of somebody speaking. Hey, naam. At the end of a sentence, naam. Yeah, okay. Why would the author write naam? I don't know. Maybe, do you know what I'm saying? So, in saying that, I'm not saying that Sheikh Abdullah is a bigger sheikh than Sheikh Salih. I'm not, you know what I'm saying, not even making that comparison. But it's more detailed, man. It's more detailed. It comes with the takhrij. معنى تخريج يعني the whole, like, if we cover a hadith, the people, sometimes he mentions the people in the chain. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's overwhelming. Do you know what I'm saying? From my little head. He will mention people in the chain. He will mention different riwayat. Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, he's a bigger scholar, he doesn't come with that. No one's going to be speaking about that in a majlis like this. People will start to fall asleep. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just being real. So, that's another reference point, and I've got about another two that I go, 2 or 3. Sheikh San'ani, who's before one of them, I go back to sometimes as well. But guys, in essence, we finished that. We finished the portion for today. Jazakumullah khair, ikhwani, for your attentiveness, and I do apologize. You know, when it comes to seeking knowledge, guys, yeah, sometimes, and I mentioned this before, and I used to get a bit concerned coming and cracking too many jokes, because the heart can become attached to having fun as opposed to learning. And the maqsood of coming to the class changes now. We're not here to have fun. Alhamdulillah, it just so happens that I'm a little bit funny now and again, and I've got somebody that I can take it out on, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes the lessons might be a bit dry. To me today, I loved it today. I did love it. But compared to all the jokes we normally crack, it was dry. But for me, it was beneficial because there was learning taking place. So get your heart connected, or we should try to get our hearts connected to the benefit and not necessarily the fun. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير. Oh gosh, my hand. I forgot to even ask if there's any questions again.
Sorry, let's show it out.
Yeah. Go to share. Yeah, that's it. Simple. Pick a good one. No.
Hey, I like that one.
Yeah, pick a.
Nah, I'm having that one, bro.